Buying modern chase cards as an investment can be incredibly risky and can result in a lack of gains or a loss over time. Now, I know a lot of you might hear this and immediately disagree with me, citing examples like the Moonbryon, which has increased massively in price over the past 2 years. The Giratina V Alt Art, the top chase card from Lost Origin, has essentially doubled in price in the past 6 months. And the Giratina V-Star, which is the top chase card from Crown Zenith, has also doubled in price over the past couple months. So if you had been incredibly successful investing in all of these top chase cards, why am I saying that it's an investing mistake? Well, what I'm talking about is investing in top chase cards from Surging Sparks forward. See, with all the cards that I've previously mentioned, they've been in the market for 2+ years. They've had time to find a stable balance between supply and demand and a stable price. Now, obviously this fluctuates over time, and we've seen spikes in the past, like the alt art craze around 8 to 9 months ago, where all of these increased around 50% in value and then dropped about 25 to 40% in value in the coming months. But my point is that they were in the market through 2023 and 2024. Then when the massive amount of collectors, scalpers, investors, whatever you want to call these people, came into the hobby in November through today in February, these cards got repriced, and so did pretty much every other Sword and Shield and Scarlet and Violet card. If a card from either of these eras had a well-loved Pokemon or a semi-popular Pokemon or a unique style of artwork, it probably went up 50% in price in the past 2 months. However, the chase cards from Surging Sparks and Prismatic Evolutions in the coming 2025 sets have all the eyes on them. There is no repricing. They come out with all the demand focused onto them. This means that these top chase cards can be overhyped and overpriced, with the inflated demand coming around all the new TCG sets. Now, to illustrate my point, let's take a look at the Surging Sparks Pikachu, which was the most hyped card coming from this set. This card has dropped 10% in value over the past 3 months, while other Sword and Shield and Scarlet and Violet cards increased between 50 and 300%. And I'll give you guys some examples. Let's look at the Snorlax 151 promo. Huge increase in price. The Persian illustration rare from Shrouded Fable, which is one of my favorite cards. I think it's up there with the Houndoom in terms of artwork and collectability. And finally, the Cresselia illustration rare, which jumped from around $10 to $30 in a couple months. All of these cards are examples of much better investments than the Surging Sparks Pikachu. Just because a card is the top chase in a set doesn't mean it's going to be a great investment. Now, another thing I want to point out with this is let's look at the sell-through rate, or the amount of people that are buying this Pikachu SIR. It went from 18 selling per day at its peak to around 1 to 2 right now. So basically, if you invested in the Surging Sparks Pikachu around released or in the past couple of months, its value would have decreased 10%. You'd also have to pay fees when you sell it for this value. And then it also is much less liquid than it was 3 months ago. Everything about that screams terrible investment. Now, this isn't to say that cards can't perform well if they're released into the market now. The Latias EX is up around 30% since release, and the Espeon EX from Prismatic Evolutions is up as well. So we really got to figure out what is the difference between these cards and the top chase cards from their sets. When you compare the Surging Sparks Pikachu to the Latias EX, you could argue that the Latias EX has a much more desirable artwork and that it looks much more pleasing. But when you compare the Espeon EX versus the Umbreon EX, I don't know if you can definitively say that one artwork is better or more desirable than the other one. Obviously, the general market would say the Moonbryon just because the price is 3 times that of the Espeon, but I could see you arguing either way. So if the Umbreon from Prismatic Evolutions hasn't increased in price, but the Espeon managed to increase in price with artwork that isn't necessarily better, then what is the real difference here? Well, in my opinion, it's where the demand for the hobby is going on release. For Surging Sparks, all the demand went into that Pikachu. It shot up in price right on release, but since then it's come back down because that hype kind of left it and people aren't making a bunch of YouTube videos about it. The Umbreon EX, tons of hype on release. Everybody's making videos about this card. The Espeon EX, cool card, people definitely like it, but people aren't really talking about it. People aren't making YouTube videos about it. It doesn't have that same clickbait. So all this to say, I think you need to be more wary about investing in ultra modern cards November 2024 onwards, but they can be a good investment opportunity if they have great artwork and people aren't talking about them. Usually if there's a bunch of YouTube videos being made about a specific card like the Umbreon EX, it's not going to be an outstanding investment. Because guess what? The inflation of demand is already there. The YouTubers are already using it for clickbait, and in all likelihood, in 3 to 4 months when a new set comes out and people stop clickbaiting this old chase card, it'll decrease a little bit in price. But if a card has great artwork, not that many people are talking about it, and its price seems fairly reasonable, it could be a good investment. Personally, I'm not following down that path. I don't like to take big risks on cards, especially since I'm a more sealed investor type of guy. But if you are looking to invest in these ultra modern single cards, I would keep all of this in mind. Now, the other issue with investing in these ultra modern cards is the reprint possibility and the reprint likelihood. The odds of Surging Sparks, Journey Together, the new set, Destined Rivals, Prismatic Evolutions, the odds of all of these sets getting a reprint is really high. Now, maybe all of them won't. Maybe one of them will skate through, won't get a reprint, and it'll be super rare going forward. But I wouldn't be surprised if all of these sets get reprinted heavily in 2025 as well as in 2026. And what will this mean for your investment in the top chase card? Well, it's going to get immediately less rare as soon as a reprint happens. Now, when you look at cards and illustration rares from the Sword and Shield era, the latter half with the Galarian Gallery and some of the trainer galleries, or the first half of Scarlet and Violet, those cards have a much lower likelihood of getting reprinted. The Pokemon Company is going to direct their focus into reprinting the sets that are the most expensive. And what sets that are in rotation right now are the most expensive? Well, it's the modern ones. It's Surging Sparks, it's Prismatic Evolutions, Journey Together is like $200 a box on pre-order. Destined Rivals, I assume, will be a $250 box. All of these sets have a huge reprint likelihood, and that makes me want to stay away from investing in the top chase cards or any singles in general. Okay, so we've talked about my number one mistake to avoid. What is a lower risk option with a higher upside? Well, right now, a lot of illustration rares are shooting up in price, and I think investing in cheaper illustration rares or illustration rare promo cards from things like ETBs are a really good play. And I'll give you guys some examples. My favorite one right now is the Snorlax 151 sealed promo. It's important to have it sealed in its cellophane because it's slightly more valuable and it will have more demand. And I've been buying them whenever I see them pop up below $10 on eBay. This is a card I can see increasing up to $20 to $30 for a sealed copy in this coming year. The Charmander ETB promo from Obsidian Flames already costs around $30 for a sealed copy. And I think the artwork for the Snorlax is almost on par with it. I don't think it's quite as good, and I think the Charmander is slightly better, especially since it connects with the Stellar Crown illustration rares, but the Snorlax still seems undervalued in comparison. And for full transparency and for the sake of showing you guys my investment, I do have a bunch of these sealed copies. I think in total I have 16. So I guess that's my conflict of interest statement. So I do actually have some of the copies of this card I'm talking about in this video. The next card I want to talk about, I don't actually have any copies. And this is the Mimikyu illustration rare. It's the ETB promo for Paldean Fates. And right now the Paldean Fates ETBs are incredibly expensive. I think this Mimikyu will end up around $11 to $17 within a year, year and a half, just based off the performance of other sealed promos and where Mimikyu kind of stacks up in the general population's well-loved Pokemon rankings, if you want to call it that. But right now you can get a sealed copy between $4 and $6, which I think is honestly a steal. Finally, the last card I've been looking at is the Houndour illustration rare from Obsidian Flames. Houndour is a dog card, immediately bumping up its demand over your average card. And the Houndoom card, which is from Shrouded Fable, has shot up massively in price, and I think this one will follow in behind. And for full transparency, I have been picking up copies of this card between $7 and $9. I don't think this will be a $30 to $40 card, but I could see it being $20 to $25, no problem. And even if it doesn't prove to be a good investment, I'm still a huge fan of Houndour, and usually that's how I invest, is I invest in the things that I'm a big fan of. So even if it doesn't perform super well and it ends up being the same value that I paid for it in a year, it's not that big of a deal, and I have some awesome cards. Also, I'm aware of my position as somebody who invests in Pokemon and is investing in these cards and is also making YouTube videos about these cards, and I don't want to manipulate the market. And I just want to let you guys know that I am personally buying these cards, and I want to be 100% transparent with what I'm buying and why. And that's kind of why I started making videos, was the why. Why do I think this is a good investment? But right now we're in kind of a weird limbo where there's so much demand in the hobby that even something like a YouTube video can set off like a chain reaction and have a card spike in price by 30, 40, 50% in value. So let me know down in the comments if you like the way I'm presenting this stuff and you want me to keep just showing you guys the stuff I'm talking about and show my position, that way I'm fully transparent, or if you want me to do something else. Also, let me know if you agree with my take on investing in top chase cards and ultra modern top chase cards. But as always, thank you guys so much for watching and stay safe out there.